Have you ever wondered what IRONMAN Foundation is all about? Well, I am here today with two of the head honchos over at IRONMAN Foundation, Shane Facteau, and I hope I pronounced your last name correctly, and Audra Tassone. Audra has been on the podcast before if you've been listening from the beginning. And I'm your host, Jill Bartholomew, and this is the Be Fierce and Try podcast. So with that, Shane, could you introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about what you're all about and what you do and how did you get here?
Yeah, it's a very loaded question, so I'll try not to take an hour
I
to
mean, it is
talk.
a podcast.
Yes, well, that's true. Long form is the new wave. Actually, it's been probably the most popular form in the world at this point. So, yeah, my name is Shane Facteau. I'm actually the president of the Ironman Foundation, but I'm actually, I think, the longest running Ironman employee, maybe in history, to be honest. I'm 27 years. I started as a very, very young man, all the way back to, for those that are based in North America, with a company. It was called Ironman North America, of all things, back then. Graham Fraser, who many of you are familiar with. He's actually in the Ironman Hall of Fame. He's actually the individual who started most of the oldest races that you know as the core of Ironman in the continental United States and Canada. I actually went to work for him back in 1999 as a very young, fresh-faced kid, 25 years old at that point. It's just, there's a whole story around my hire, which I will say for another time, but 27 years later, I am still engaged and have really had the privilege of having multiple careers within one organization, which is very rare today. And the organization has changed a lot. I mean, back in 99, it was a bunch of very innovative grassroots licensed organizers who created Ironman. We're running it around the world. I had the privilege to learn the business from the ground up that way. I actually started in PR and communications, if you can believe it. Made my way over to the operating component of the business, and actually have spent the last 13 years as the chief operating officer of the entire company. Lived in Europe. I've lived in Germany twice, Australia, all while working for Ironman, helping put on events all over the world. And I've seen the business grow from what were actually 8 events in 1999 when I was first hired to more than 150 events across 2 brands now, Ironman and 70.3. And obviously the business is in trail running and really expanded into multiple verticals. So it's been a very unique journey. This past year, Scott Drew, who's our CEO, asked me if I would move over to work with the foundation full time. The company is making an investment in that. I was running the board, but it was on nights and weekends. Will Audra obviously doing a great job managing the team, but Ironman's made a big commitment to the foundation and trying to grow our nonprofit aspect of what has been actually a fairly long organization in and of itself. Ironman's about to celebrate its 50th anniversary in 2028. And will celebrate its 25th anniversary then. I had the privilege of being involved since the beginning, all the way back to, again, I think it was 2003, where Graham sort of created this little foundation with the idea, hey, let's give some money back in communities. I remember we gave $35,000 that first year to Lake Placid. That was sort of the first aegis of what is now an organization that's given away over $60 million around the world. I think sometimes because we're operators, we fly a little bit under the radar with the foundation. So one of the goals is to certainly kind of elaborate on the mission, which is pretty robust, actually. And we have some big plans coming up with our anniversary. So I'll try to tie it off there, but I've seen a lot, been a lot, done a lot, and certainly it's a great privilege to be involved in this aspect of the business, which really is doing some really wonderful work in the communities. And I'm sure Audra will elaborate further, and we can talk. I'm sure we'll elaborate further throughout the hour on what it is we've done and some of the things we've seen. But it's been a cool journey. I've been very privileged. You know, I have 2 kids. They've traveled the world with me when we lived abroad. So I came from a very small town in upstate New York. So for many people who know me intimately from those days, to see where I've been and the things I've been able to see and do is pretty cool.
So which small town in upstate New York are you from?
It's called Saranac. It's about 45 minutes from Lake Placid, which makes sense. As my journey started there, but it's about 900 people, no stoplights, you know, very typical small town, sort of old farming community environment that you would No, I mean, many people come from these small town environments, and I certainly was one.
Saratoga right here.
Yep, you're an hour and a half south of me, right? Give or take,
Much
right?
bigger, much larger though.
Yes.
I think Albany is still in the process of taking over Saratoga,
Yeah. Still sprawling a little bit, yeah. Yeah, I haven't
right?
lived there in a number of years, but it's always interesting. I remember, I'll give one little anecdote. I remember one time I had a driver driving me in China to go sign an agreement for a new race there, and like a place where there was like three people who spoke English. And I'm in that car driving, and I'm like, you think about those moments, like how the heck did I get here moments. That was one of those ones I was thinking about, streaking down a highway in China, being like, what in good God's name? How did this happen? So,
Yeah, yeah. All right. And Audra, you've been on the show before, but for those who haven't been following every episode, can you introduce yourself? And same question, what motivates you and how did you get here?
Okay. Hi, my name is Audra. I'm the executive director and vice president of the IRONMAN Foundation. What motivates me is what we're doing with the IRONMAN Foundation is giving back and being able to provide kids or nonprofits with opportunities, and I can go into a little bit about it. We give back bikes and swim lessons. Currently, we were just in South Africa. We were at the Cape Epic event. We brought 8 athletes there, so we had 4 teams. Those teams raised a total of $120,000, and we were able to give back bikes to local kids from the township. So we work with 2 organizations there, the Anna Foundation and Sangha. Last year, we partnered with the Anna Foundation, and we've given back 140 bikes. And with partnering with them this year, we are able to expand their bike program. So with the more bikes, they were able to hire a coach, and now they're able to go to more townships and give kids an opportunity to ride the bike. So that's what I'm really passionate about, is being able to give kids an opportunity outside of supporting our race communities. How I got here is I worked for an independent event company called Endorphin Sports. My old boss was Keith Jordan. Met Shane in 2009. We're one of the first licensees for Ironman. Ironman purchased our events. Shane was my boss. He hired me in 2010. I race directed 4 events and then just kind of moved up the ranks with, I became an operations manager, director, then a regional director. And then I had the opportunity. Shane asked me to come over to the nonprofit side of the business, and it's been amazing ever since.
Awesome. So I think let's talk about Ironman Foundation and like what it really is. I think most people who have gone to the Ironman registration page, especially to a sold out race, is accustomed to seeing, other entries or special entries. Ironman Foundation is usually one of them, alongside a few others. Just another way to get into your race. Tell me about it. Like, how did what made you think to start it, and why should someone race with Foundation?
yeah, I think so. To go back a bit, I think one of the things was is the business became a real business, particularly in North America. Graham at that time and his wife Sue Frazier actually served as our first executive director. Like, we're in these communities. How do we support them and give them back? As you all know, particularly in North America, there's a long-standing culture of volunteerism, right? And volunteers are needed to run events. So we're like, well, how do we tie these things together? Right. And some of we lived in Lake Placid, so it was a little bit unique, but some of these other communities, the Wisconsins, the Oceansides, the oldest of the older communities, we didn't live in. So how would we give money back in these places, and how would we create that money? You're talking about the community fund entries is one way that money, that was actually the original way that those funds were created. So we're like, well, we have all these groups that work on the events often, because as you all know, it's very much a community thing. Many of them are nonprofits. Why don't we either donate to them or have them help us give back this money? And that was sort of the original Aegeus. So the biggest piece of what we still do to this day is what we call volunteerism and community grants. This year, we'll do about 1.5 million through these small grants, right? Which, when you think about the world we live in, I talk about this a lot. Like, there's a lot of conflict, particularly in the United States. Like people are very opinionated, and there's a lot of focus on the things that separate us versus, but these small groups, we're talking Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, sports teams, these are the groups that are volunteering at the event, but are really the fabric of communities. What is a community made up of? Well, community, we have a race community, we have an Ironman race community, which are athletes and we come together. But there's also the communities we race in, and they're made up of all these small groups. So we thought, wouldn't it be cool for us to be able to support them? $1,000 or $1,500 to a Boy Scout troop is a big deal, right? It pays for gear, it does stuff, or
It's a
15,
huge deal for some groups.
yeah, or $1,500 to the local volleyball team to buy new uniforms, right? All of those have great meaning. A lot of organizations are more like, we do this thing and this is what we give to. Whereas we started from the mindset of our job is to support our race communities. They know better than we do to some degree where that value is. And that was sort of the original Aegeus. We really have 4 pillars, Jill, I think, on give back. And that's the oldest, the most important, and one that will never go away. Too important. It's worked really well. Sometimes hard to articulate because it's a lot of small scale donations made over long periods of time. I'm about to go speak at Ironman Texas, which is coming up, and we've given almost 1.7 million to the Woodlands community over time, right? So those numbers start to add up in these communities, particularly the smaller ones, and it have great meaning. But we really have 4 pillars. There's the community volunteerism grants, which is our biggest. Second are the kids programs Audra talked about. She mentioned 2 of them. We've about 3 years ago, we really started to think about, okay, we've done ad hoc different versions of kids programs tied to swim, bike, run. We've taken a real concerted effort to start to create unified programs. So we have Swim Ready, which I think we're going to partner with 10 or 11 of our communities this year. A couple are on the cusp, where we help, usually working through YMCAs or Boys and Girls Club or local community pools, teach kids to swim, right? And oftentimes it's underprivileged kids. Our gold standard of this is Chattanooga, where we partnered with the greater Chattanooga YMCA, and we've done some really nice work there. So we're building that program out because still to this day, I think swimming or swim related deaths are still in the top 5 of kids in the United States. Reason why, accidental death happens. So, and certainly in some of these poorer communities or some of the areas we do, one of the goals is to teach as many people to swim. We always joke the thing that actually still scares adult Ironman athletes the most usually is a swim. So taking that and then kind of extrapolating that to the youth made a lot of sense. And that's sort of where we started. Then Audra mentioned Cape Epic, which, by the way, for those that don't know, is probably the most iconic mountain biking event in the world. Actually, the Ironman Group owns that event. It's an 8-day stage mountain bike race where athletes race as a team, 2 people, and they cover between 400 and 500 kilometers over those 8 days. They camp out, they go day after day. It's really a unique thing. And if, it's one of these ones you got to do before you die type events. And Audra started working with some of the organization there 2 years ago. And we've sort of have the wolf by the ears, as we say. We've created a program where we were able to put some teams in, they fundraise for us. And the Bikes for Kids program is part of that. We've donated 140 bikes. If you've ever been to South Africa, you want to talk about poverty and understand, the impact that we've had. We did some work around the World Championship a number of years ago. We actually built a daycare in a township and gave them a bus because kids are walking to school like 5-6 miles. I mean, this is true poverty. But this partnership, we bought 140 bikes. We're working with 2 local organizations. They're teaching these kids to bike. They get access to the bikes. They keep track of the bikes because theft is a huge issue there. So it really is something that's grown. But that program exists on the Ironman side as well. We just did 100 bikes in Chattanooga with our partnership with the greater Chattanooga YMCA. Giving a kid a bike, like we want to give a kid a bike. We want to give it to them, right? And remember what it was like to get your first bike. Like the world opens up to some degree. It's not just the fitness and becoming a cyclist. It's literally transportation and like the ability to broaden your world from the 5 miles you can walk, right? So it's been really powerful. We're doing this in Jacksonville, the new Ironman coming up. And we have some other events. We're going to actually dabble a little bit in Europe at Ironman Barcelona with the program. We think this program is going to be really robust. And then we have the beginnings of a running program tied to our Iron Kids events, which exists virtually all over the world at every event. We're going to scholarship some kids and see if we can build a real run program, but to expose kids, particularly underprivileged kids, to swimming, biking, and running. And it's not only on a fitness level, but it's a lifestyle level. Like Audra was able to imagine being a kid, a really poor kid, and being able to go to the Cape Epic. They went to the event. They got to see these athletes compete and do this really cool thing. And certainly that's one of the goals of Iron Kids, as you know, having seen it yourself, Jill. So building those kids programs is really our second pillar, but a really critical one for us and one we're proud of, and that's really moving. And then quickly, go
My
ahead.
daughter still loves Iron Kids in Lake Placid, although I think she may be getting a little aging out of that at this point.
My son and daughter have done their share and have their share of medals hanging in their room. But we sometimes forget as adults how impactful those things are, particularly if you've never done it. Like I remember going all the way back to living in Boulder. My son did it was called the Pearl Street Mile. He was like 4 and I ran it with him. And it was like such an eye-opening thing for him. Like these are just giving kids opportunities to be able to not only be fit, but to experience some of the things and get a taste of it is really, really important. And it resonates. So when we think about the good, and these are in the race communities that are, holding a race is not always an easy endeavor for a community. We close roads, we're parking everywhere. Like we tend to impact sometimes, at least for a short period of time, in a way that is an inconvenience for local residents. So it's very important that we continue to build those bonds in a world, frankly, post-pandemic, where it was very difficult on people, right? When you think about the impact that had in budgets and everything else. So we offer, a unique opportunity to give back to these communities through what are our 2 main pillars. And then we have 2 others. One is sort of is a quasi endowment. It isn't the sexy work of nonprofit, but ultimately one of the things is we have to be good stewards of the capital that people give us. When you donate to us, I mean, many of us donate to causes and charities, and you want to make sure your money is going to do the most good. So probably 5 years ago, we made a commitment to start to build what's known as a quasi endowment. Most people know endowments. It's a quasi endowment because it gives more flexibility if needed. But we built a significant backstop there. Our goal is to have that be 25 million. And the goal would be to pay the overhead expenses of the foundation somewhere in the future so that every dollar at that point that comes in is going back out the door to these programs. And and I'm really proud of the board we have now because that's not sexy work. That's like being disciplined and smart and really trying to build something, sustainable long term that can continue to do these good projects. And then fourth, we're doing some work around the anniversary. I think we have some big plans to hopefully raise a lot of money and give a lot of money away around what is the 50th anniversary of Ironman 2028. It's actually February to be precise. Will be the 50th anniversary of the existence of Ironman, and that year just happens to coincide with the 25th anniversary of the Ironman Foundation. So we're building that plan. More to come. We're excited. I'm sure we'll come back and talk to you once we have that because it's going to require. Yeah, it's going to be an opportunity for us to challenge everyone whose life had been positively impacted by Ironman to give and to help us do some really impactful things in these communities. So that's sort of a high level sort of what we do, but we joke it's a small team, it's growing. We pack a mighty punch for something that's pretty small, right? We've given away over $60 million since its inception, and that's a pretty positive thing. But we continue to grow and look to do more. We have some international stuff we need to get done and want to do. Ironman's an international brand. We have international communities, but the gist and the core of it was built and started in North America, and particularly through those volunteer groups. So athletes, when you see those groups of Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, make sure to thank them. We're trying to help as well. And the experience they have is very important. And our job is to continue to foster those relationships.
Wow, that's a lot of pieces there. And it is a small team. I think I've met most of the people on the team at this point. And you would think that something that's got this many pieces and as ambitious as this would be bigger than it is. Especially a
Some very
charity, you need to
capable
operate
people.
on a shoestring, really.
Well, capable people, right? I think certainly virtually everyone, maybe too much, has an operating background in the group. In fact, we probably have other areas we need to be better because it's naturally in our DNA. But again, you can do great work, but you take it serious, you work hard, and certainly this team is an epitome of not only this group, but I think if you know anything about Ironman in general and the people working on the events, it's a pretty impressive group in total. It'll grow over time like everything, but one of the things in nonprofit world is be disciplined on your manpower, right? You got to be smart and disciplined. And like I said, we'll head to Texas, actually, Team IMF, which you're a member. Super impressed with where we're headed there. That's our team of athletes who are raising money to help us fund these things, these great things we're doing. Going to have as many as 400 of them this year. Andrea Fisher manages that for us, has done a fantastic job. I'm actually headed to Texas. I don't know when this airs, so hopefully I didn't just back us into a corner on date. But yeah, we have a nice team there. We actually had 44 members in Little
This
Elm
should
this year.
this should be live on Thursday.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
It'll be
There we go.
before the race.
But that's a key component to, we have this team of athletes. You're an ambassador for that team, and we appreciate that. That
Which is
just is
part of what got us here, right? Because I'm like, I am an ambassador for Ironman Foundation because I think you're doing a lot of great work. And let's face it, I race a lot, and I'm going to be racing with Ironman anyways. So why not have that money go to a good use, right? And I do think that, I had no idea that you were doing quite as much as you are, but I knew about some of the give backs. I'm like, I think that's fantastic. Having been originally from one of those like really teeny tiny little small towns in the middle of the cornfields of Ohio, I think it's fantastic. So
Yeah, even taking it one more step, think about exposing these, in particular in the kids stuff, the programs, or you expose them to these international events. Like we're going to go to Texas, and it's as international as any event you'll see in the United States. Like the field there, if you look at it from not just a professional level, but certainly you have people from all over the place. Like I know.
yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking about Cape Epic,
Yep,
right? It's like that is a big race, and it pulls people from like really all over the world.
that's right.
And Audra keeps trying to get me to race that. I said to her, I'm like, there's a couple of key things missing there. One is I don't own a mountain bike, and two, I don't know how to ride a mountain bike.
Not yet, but if anybody can learn quickly, it would be you, Jill. So yeah.
Your skill
I,
set is probably very well attuned to that event, by the way. That's
I
my
have
2 cents. Not to out you, but
heard that from now 5 people.
yeah.
So maybe, but we need to figure that one out. But as you were talking about it, I was thinking exactly that. Like you have this area that is impoverished and isn't used to being exposed like that, especially the children. And having the kids just see that happen and witness it, hopefully it inspires a few of them to, you know, aspire to something bigger than what they see in their day to day.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. Like, I mean, I was a wrestler, so that was my background. I ended up wrestling in high school and college, but I
So
was
wait, you
lucky
went
enough
from wrestling to Ironman. They're not really connected.
that they're not directly connected. They can be if needed, but yes, I don't think we'll add it.
I think that's a DQ.
The skills have come in handy at various points over my career. Not so. But I ended up lucky enough to have a young coach who had wrestled all over the country and was a top level guy, and he took us everywhere. So speaking on a smaller level, that exposure and understanding there's a bigger world out there, and there is the possibility that maybe maybe I can do one of these things. Like you don't know the impact. Like I always think back, I think it was Matt Russell, right? Is it Matt
Mhm.
Russell who won like Placid? And he's from this place, Jill, trust me, you think you're from a small town. He's from a small town in upstate New York that is even Madrid, Waddington, which is in literally the middle of nowhere. But he came as a teenager and would volunteer on the race and did that like 3 years in a row. And he tells that story and then later won like Placid. And there's no doubt him doing that and seeing that is why he decided to. And we're not trying to necessarily create lifetime triathletes. It's more about fitness and what is possible, and just seeing this stuff is very, very valuable, not only to kids, by the way, it's adults too. Like, how many adults, see the race, get inspired? Hey, I've had a hard time or something hasn't gone right for me. I'm going to make a commitment and do a race. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. It could be a 5K. It could be anything, right? But I'm going to take better care of myself and or, aspire to be better. This is Chris Nikic, right? The whole 1% better, right? Like, we've all seen, and one of the things that Ironman has always offered is that whether it's direct linkage of, hey, I'm going to become a triathlete, or, hey, I'm just going to do better every day for myself because this guy or woman or man or, athlete inspired me, and offering that to these kids is a fringe benefit of all of this. And we take that seriously, and it's an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. So I love the Swim Ready program, but tell me more about like how this endowment is used and what that goes towards.
Yeah, so it's a quasi endowment. Right now, all it is we pump the interest is pumped back into it, and it grows over time. We had built money, and then ultimately the goal is, once it's grown to a level that we can endow, quasi endow, because a true endowment is locked into a specific purpose. Quasi endowment, we've made the commitment from a board level that this is where we're going to build this. It's always there as a backstop if needed. But the goal would be to endow the overhead expenses at some point, at which point the team could go out whenever we're raising money or talking to athletes or high value donors and say, we've endowed those expenses. Every dollar that comes in from here forward goes back out into the community, because there is overhead. It does cost money to run any kind of organization.
Yeah, for
That's the
sure.
goal.
There's been charities that have gotten in trouble for the
100%.
amount of overhead in the past, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it changes over time, but ultimately the goal there is to be able to do that and be very good stewards of the donations and the monies that come in. And I think we've done a good job to date with that.
So I think in an event, we see, the folks in the IMF kits every once in a while, and some events tents. But for those who become athletes for IMF for whatever reason, I know some people look at it as a way to get into a race that's otherwise shut out. Although I heard even IMF had a sellout on Oceanside this year
Oceanside in Oregon,
and Oregon.
in Dallas,
And Tremblant.
and Tremblant. Yeah.
It's a popular racing year.
Yeah. Very popular.
Yeah. So, what do those athletes experience aside from wearing red?
You want to take it, Shane? Or
No, Jay, you can tell.
okay. So, our athletes, if it's not a signature event, so we have about 6 or 7 signature events this year, they will receive a low bib number. So they'll be racked near the pros. We will do like a lunch or a breakfast. We'll have one of our volunteer groups come and meet the athletes if we're in the expo area. We also will do a meet and greet with the race director. We'll do a walkthrough of the actual race site where you'll see where swim, bike, and run, so you can kind of get your head together for race day. You'll have one-on-one access to the whole team, myself included. We also will have ambassadors, Jill, as you know, like a lot of times the ambassadors will host a run or a swim or a bike. So we'll do a meetup.
We try, though sometimes people don't bother showing up.
Exactly. So, and I know you've tried multiple times, but we do have a small core that will definitely always show up. At our signature events, we'll bring in a bike mechanic. So you'll have a dedicated bike mechanic. And then also what we'll do is you have the option if you want to either self-seed yourself, or you can move up to the front of the line and go with the XC athletes and Nirvana. So basically it'd be right after the pros. So there's a lot of like just one-on-one attention, and it's such an incredible environment and community. And outside of that, you're giving back to our race communities and also supporting our kids programs.
So I was talking to an athlete who I was trying to talk into racing with IMF the other day. He's like, I want to sign up for Lake Placid.
Yeah.
But I think I had texted you about this person. I
You
was like,
did.
how much is Lake Placid on IMF again? And I was telling him about like, well, some races, you can, start right behind the pros. And he's like, why would I do that? The fear, like I could see the look of fear in his eyes getting swum over by the masses, right? And like, it's actually not that bad, right? I'm confident in the water. I'm not slow, I'm not super fast. But yeah, you don't really get swum over. I think people have that image in their head of like the washing machine, which I've really only actually experienced that at Texas, like that channel. It's pretty chaotic in there, but I think the bike mechanic is really great for a lot of people. I mean, we were talking about this, we've been to how many races where people don't even know how to put their pedals back on their bike?
Yeah.
They brought it to a bike shop, it got shipped, and the only thing that really needs to be put together is the pedals, and they go and they wait in like a 3-hour long line for the bike mechanic in Ironman Village to put their pedals back on. So, I
Yeah.
think like basic stuff like that, it's great to have someone who knows what they're talking about, and if something breaks, like, obviously, you've got access. I think that's a fantastic benefit.
The bike mechanic, he'll also put together and break down your bike too. So it's definitely, to your point, very helpful to have our own dedicated bike mechanic who's there for us specifically for IMF. We have so many people that walk over and they're like, can we use the bike mechanic? It's like, oh, you got to join Team IMF.
For a fee.
For a fee, exactly. Everything for a donation. And also,
Donation.
Jill, you haven't seen this year, we have a new expo set up. It will be in, are you racing Texas? I can't remember if you're racing Texas.
Well, I was going to, but
Right. Jackson.
with the injury that I had, not happening. So I'm gonna do Ironman Florida at the end of the season instead. But
Okay.
I will be at Jacksonville.
Okay. So we'll have it in Jacksonville. So we put some money against like 2 large dome tents. So very similar to the Shane, what is it called? The athlete experience tents for the
The one with
expo.
the one with like the bike, the Wahoo bike in it. That one.
Exactly. And it's more interactive. So we have games and we've definitely invested a lot of money towards this just to have a better experience and a more inviting tent. So we kicked it off in Oceanside and the team said it went really well. So we're excited about that. So much that we're having other people from Ironman come up to us and saying, where did you buy your tent? Where did you get that game? Where did you do this? Where can we buy your signs? I was like, wait a second. So, but yeah,
It's a
so we're
secret. We'll tell you in 3 years.
exactly. So we actually do need to make another investment in another tent. And that's a conversation I need to have with Shane. But we're really excited.
Surprise, Shane.
Right. But it's been great. So I'm excited for you to see it since you've been one of our biggest supporters for multiple years. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it in Jacksonville. Is actually on my list of things to do this week is to reach out to Andrea and be like, do we have a schedule yet for like who's going to be in the tent when for Jacksonville? Yeah, and speaking of supporting Ironman Foundation, this podcast gets about 250,000 views a month. So, and it is ad supported. So for the next 90 days, because I really can't track much beyond that, any ad revenue that comes from this episode will go to Ironman Foundation. So don't know how big that'll be because every listen equates to something around 4 cents. But I was thinking, I'm like, we'll do that, see how much we can get. And I'll include that in all the social media posts. So please share it when it comes out.
Thank you, Jill.
That's
Thank
all.
you.
That's all through an ad network. Now, of course, it means that you might be listening to Ironman and a McDonald's ad, but that's perfectly fine.
Okay. That's all right.
Yes, there are no political ads and there are no healthcare ads, but aside from that, it's
But not
pretty
to
open.
put you on the spot, but talk about your experience with Team IMF. I'm curious. We've kind of laid out, the goal is to build a community of people who believe greatly in the mission of the nonprofit. And I think as the team grows, that those relationships are as important as certainly to enhance service. That's the goal, to make the race experience even more enjoyable, even better. But talk a little bit about your experience for those out there as someone who's kind of been with us for a while. I'm just curious.
So I guess I've raced with IMF. This is my, I think, third year racing with IMF, right? And in total, that accounts for probably around 10 events ish
Yeah.
so far. And I think I have like 5 or 6 this year. And last year was my first year as an ambassador. I think for me, personally, I like that our dollars are going to someplace that's not just a corporate pocket. And when I started racing with, started doing Ironman, I was an executive at a pretty large company. And it was it was important to me that, as I spent what are over time pretty significant, sums that, that it went to a good place when that's always an option, right? As an athlete, I think the experience is great, but it's improved over time. Like in those 2, 3 years, I've seen it improve, and I'm sure that like next year it'll be that much better. I think remember Chattanooga 2 years ago is a table with a donation jar at the 70.3, and it sounds like this year it's really on par with some of the like top end vendors that you've got this year. I look forward to seeing that. I think the bike mechanic, which you added last year, right?
We added it in Kona 2 years ago, but we did it our signature series last year. So we're only going to expand that over the years, and that's been
Right,
so now we
because
have a few bike mechanics that we
okay,
incorporate.
because at Nice 2 years ago, there was not a bike mechanic.
No.
Yeah, I remember a few of us trekked down to the triathlon store.
Yep.
Although that was fun. At some of these races that you have to travel for, we walked down to the triathlon store like 2 days before the race. I'm like, I need a CO2 cartridge. They're like, no.
Yeah, of course.
They're like, no, we long sold out of that. But no, I think the support that you guys give is fantastic with the ambassadors, like, calling athletes and yeah, most athletes don't pick up the phone, but you know, last year I made those phone calls. I had people reach out afterwards, like asking for like, hey, this is the training plan I have. What do you think? And I think like just having people to sound off of is useful for a lot of folks. And I will say I do love the VIP experience that my family gets.
Yeah, that's an
I mean,
important
they
part.
love it more than I do, but
Yeah. I mean, none of us do this without our families, right? In many cases, of that have families, right? So we certainly can recognize, both of us coming from hardcore operating backgrounds, that it's a long day, a full distance in particular, for families and friends. And, it's a commitment. And you sacrifice as an individual, Joe, in your case, is to train, but your family sacrifice as well, right? And it's important to recognize that.
yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk a lot about. I have a coaching business, and it's one of the things I talk a lot about with my athletes is, how do you like weave your training into the rest of your life? Right? Because none of us come to this and are like, oh, we don't have a job, we don't have a family, we don't have any other responsibilities. This is the only thing we're doing is training. It's like, no, we're not professional athletes, and even they probably have a family and need to make an income. But yeah, no. And this year, my kids aren't traveling as much as they have their own sports, and they're getting older. And my daughter this year, she's like, Mom, like Placid again. Could we do a different one? I do it every year. Come on, you should know this by now. But yeah, I mean, on these races, like think about it. These are long days for the athletes. What's the average finish time? Like around 13 hours, probably.
12, 13, depending on
Yeah.
the event and the style and weather.
Right, right. So I think like Lake Placid is probably a little bit longer. So you've got all these families who are waiting around for their athlete where they see them get in the water for the swim. They see them an hour later to 2 hours later get out of the water. And then they see them get on their bike. And then 2 to 4 hours later, they see him again for 10 seconds. And then 2 to 4 hours later, they see him again for a minute. And then they see him maybe 3 or 4 times on the run. That's a long day interspersed by 10-second intervals, right?
Yeah.
So I think like everything we can do for the families and spectators is just kind of icing, especially when you have little kids. My kids are not shy about telling you when they are bored. Yeah, teenage boys and girls, they're very vocal. They're like, "I'm bored. I'm sorry to hear that. You're still doing that."
We Shane, last year in Lake Placid, we found Jill on the bike course, and it was pouring rain. So we
I
came
think
up to her.
torrential.
Yeah,
No way.
we came up to her on the in the truck, and she was like, "What do you do?" She gave me this look of like she was happy to see us, but she wasn't happy to see us.
Put it in context. It was 2/3 of the way through the second lap, and my nutrition, like, it was, like, actively bonking at the time because I was on a different nutrition strategy than what I was used to. Thank you to my coach at the time, and they're like, "What's wrong? You're slow for you. You're usually faster than this."
Super helpful. Good job, Audra.
Yeah, exactly.
Jill is she's so hard on herself. She's always saying that I'm not fast enough or I was slow. And I'm like, you absolutely crush it. You are so hard on yourself, but you're a phenomenal athlete. So
I mean, it's all relative. Like, again, we're talking about kids and we're talking about sports and all these things. Everyone to some degree has those moments in athletics where you have to talk to yourself. And I think,
Yeah.
again, it's important, again, not to, as we think about the things we've been speaking about, building these kids programs and letting them experience athletics. The one thing I've always loved about Ironman is it's really, really hard and everybody does the same thing. So, yes, we talk a lot about different things, and in a world where, kids struggle sometimes with resiliency and learning to do hard things, showing that and having it be level. Like, we obviously work, and we didn't really mention this, but we work closely with Challenge Athletes Foundation as well. We do both give back and programs with them, a little bit different, smaller groups, but very important. We've had athletes, Roderick Sewell's a great example, who've been a part of our mission. What I've always enjoyed is being able to show the world and people that people of all kinds can do, any body type, gender, you name it, whatever, like different abilities, can do this really, really hard thing. And showing
Out on
that.
the course, you see all types.
That's right. And I think that's really important, right? For as we talk about, hey, how are we impacting our communities? How are we impacting kids? We're talking both race community and communities that host us. Showing those dark moments sometimes or those struggles, it's just as important as showing the victories, right? Like, I mean, that you don't get from one without going through the other. Not of anything of real value. Anything of real value in life requires hard work and overcoming some level of challenges. It's the old, if it was easy, everybody'd do it. And that's any sport, any job, anything that you're going to have adversity, right? And again, part of this is we're seeing a mix of kids who already are facing adversity, showing them something iconic that has its own adversity in it. But like all this stuff is super positive. And I think at the end, showing that sort of broken down, really like I had to gut my way through X and Y and Z in many ways is more important than, hey, I crushed it, hit everything right, and, had the best day ever.
So, supporting these, you do a number of fundraisers aside from just race registrations, right? One of my favorite ones is watching the relays. Are you doing any of those this year? The pro relay, was it former pro relays?
yeah, not so we did something in Cape Epic. So we had Ben Hoffman and Matthew Marquardt who raced with two athletes. So it is something that is on our calendar that we're most likely are going to roll out in 2028 for the 25th year anniversary. We've had some conversations with some, retired pros. So stay tuned with that. But yes.
Yes, I think you've had a couple with Michelle, I think.
Yes. Yep.
McKeely, sorry.
McKeely. No. McKeely. Yes. And she's supported Ironman Foundation. She was at the World Championship last year. She was in Spain and she was in Nice the year before as an ambassador, but more to come on that. So
Fantastic.
Yeah, we have a couple other programs. We have some auctions. The Lima auction is the most common one we do every fall, where we auction off a number of items, triathlon related and or otherwise, over a period of time, with all the proceeds coming to us. We have a number of high value donors who simply believe in the mission. And as part of there's some very sophisticated give back plans that people do. They believe in what we're doing. I think neither Audra nor I are natural development people. We recognize that, but the passion and our ability to, we believe in what we say. And oftentimes, particularly in the nonprofit world, that comes first, right? You have to believe in your mission. Trying to build the organization a little bit with some people with maybe some sophisticated development background. More to come there, but ultimately we have our auctions, we have Team IMF, we have community fund slots. We actually are doing a little bit with some sponsors. We've had some partners over the years who've been very supportive. Quintana Roo is a big one. They've helped us a lot as we think about this Bikes for Kids program. How do we do this? You gotta, there's actual execution around some of this stuff. Hoka.
I like the auction. This year, I have one athlete who we gave away one coaching spot to coached athlete, which was not just me. It was also, it's not just me and my time from my company, but TriDot also comped the platform for that athlete for the year. I think that's turned out well. I love going through the list and seeing okay, well, who signed up this year to give away stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and one of the new things we're doing this year too is we're hosting two of our athletes are hosting, I guess you could say, cocktail hours or happy hours, and it's going to be dedicated just to IMF, and we're going to talk about our mission, and we're going to solicit donations, and we're going to bring in some guest speakers. So I'm really excited for that. Well, our first one will kick off at 70.3 Chattanooga, and then the other one is at one of our athletes' homes that we're going to do I think it's Fort Lauderdale, right, Shane? Is it Fort Lauderdale? Yeah. So that will be in June. So that's something new for us, just being in that more of an intimate setting. So we're obviously very open to any new fundraising ideas out there, but this year has been going really strong.
But yeah, for your listeners, I think there's 3 or 4 really easy ways to give back. You can just go to, ironmanfoundation.org and make a straight donation. You can join Team IMF. I think when you think about value for dollar and the ability to connect with the mission, and frankly, a big part of give back is, what are you passionate about? And is it, you know, getting that emotional kind of feel for doing good in the world? So Team IMF's a big way. Obviously, we have our high value donors, we have our auctions, but obviously there's a bunch of different ways to get involved with us and give back to the mission. We believe strongly in it, and certainly we'll continue to look to grow this. We have some big plans, as I said. We're not going to get too in the weeds of it yet. We're still building the plan for 2028. But we're excited about where we're headed, and we're excited to see the good that is, there's a young boy that we follow closely in Chattanooga who went from literally being afraid to get in the water to now he's a lifeguard at the YMCA in Chattanooga. And that's through the program that we helped fund, and certainly helped him learn, not only go from there, but to become and really evolve as a human. And I think ultimately the goal is, how do we make a better world? And we do it within the framework of the things that we do. I think sometimes nonprofits try to be too many things to too many people, and actually certainly having a refined, clear mission is very, very important. And, the 2 big programs of ours, I think, really, really resonate and tie us to the communities that are so important to us, which are our athlete community, but also our race communities. And those 2 things are symbiotic, right? And your athletes should really know that. And I think all of us have talked about it. Without the race communities, there are no races, right? So we all, it's, I think, incumbent upon all of us to continue to foster those and support those communities. The communities themselves generate value just on an economic level, and they all understand that. But it's more than that. How are we How does Lake Placid continue to be an iconic community for another 25 years, right? Or how do new
Yeah, and it's
communities really start to understand how they're special and this relationship matters between the athletes coming in to do an event in their community, our organization, and themselves.
yeah, and I imagine for most of the communities, it's the things they care about go well beyond just the financials, the economic impacts.
Yeah, I mean, and it varies obviously, but many of the communities love, we offer a very unique opportunity for people to visually see something very positive. It's events offer that in a very unique way, right? You see a finish line, you see these athletes. I mean, you've experienced it multiple times, Jill, but that feeling, you get to be a part of that. It's tough to describe, and I've said this now for decades. Like, you got to see one to really understand it. And I can't tell you how many people, hundreds, thousands over the years I've spoken to who have that experience, even just watching. I don't mean racing. I mean, like, just experiencing it, and the scale and scope and the commitment and the fighting through conditions. And then you get to see these athletes, particularly, the magic hour is always still going to resonate. I think that'll happen forever. Those 16 to 17-hour athletes, a little bit different time in a few places of the world. Some are restricted on how long, but it's hard to describe that if you don't see it. And that emotional sort of payoff, I think, it's pretty powerful.
And it never gets old. And at Kona this year, we came back down for the final finishers, and I was so glad we did. Although now I see replays of the same videos that we took on our own phones that someone else took of the finish lines. Still, 6 months later with the final finishers. So that was pretty cool. All right. So Shane and
And I've
Audra,
been able to run into a few of those people.
I bet you have. So Shane and Audra, kind of wrapping up, is there anything that you didn't talk about that you want our listeners to?
I'd say join the mission, join the journey, right? We're doing great things. We hope that all of you come check us out, ironmanfoundation.org, or come see us at an event. As Audra said, I believe we have 12 or 13 signature events, but we're at most of the North American events. Stop by the booth, talk to the team, ultimately figure out ways you can get involved, whether it's just donating time or becoming part of Team IMF, or, just becoming part of the mission. So
Thank you, Shane and Audra. I truly appreciate you coming on the show. And I hope we get as many downloads as possible so we can maximize what that donation looks like. And that's, as they say, a wrap for today's episode of the Be Fierce and Try podcast. I'm Jill Bartholomew. I hope that what you heard today was interesting, inspiring, and that this episode helped you to think smarter, train differently, and show up with more intention. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss what's next. And if you are looking for support on your journey to your next start or finish line, I would love to work with you. Here at Be Fierce Multisport, we work with athletes of all abilities, and you can learn more about coaching, training plans, bike fittings, and everything else that we are building at Be Fierce Multisport at the site, BeFierceMultisport.com. Until next time, train with purpose, execute with intention. And as always, be fierce and be you.